I can't quite decide whether to have my brownie now or later. Are we all good? Hey there guys, my name's Megan if you're new here, and if not, welcome back for another spooky episode of Left for Reddit, where we'll dive into the underbelly of the internet and I'll try and find you the most terrifying true stories. If you like all things true crime, supernatural, UFO, conspiracy theory, and all that good stuff in between, then please hit that subscribe button. I'll be here for you each week with our true crime killer weekends, and on and off every couple of Wednesdays with our weirdo Wednesdays and Left for Reddit episodes, where we'll discuss something spooky I've heard. Hey my wee gremlins, it's me. I'm drunk already. If you know me by now, then you will know that I love video games, more specifically horror video games. I'm not the best at playing them, okay? I'm borderline awful, but it's the effort that counts. The newest one that I'm completely hooked on is called The Quarry by developers Supermassive Games, and they're not even paying me to say this, so you can tell that I really like it. It's so cool. It's set in this like backwoods American summer camp. Think Friday the 13th vibes without big sexy Jason, of course. Jason. Don't look at me like that, okay? The boy's rocking some hot shoulders. So tonight, in honour of my new favourite game, I thought we'd do a sleepaway camp kind of vibe, and also with alcohol. I've carefully hand selected some of the scariest shit that Reddit has to offer. I also have, in the drinking corner, we have a gorgeous White Russian in a Halloween sippy cup. And over here, we've got a gorgeous little brownie, which I've already eaten half of. And yes, I am cheating on my diet. Are you ready? Do you have your booze? Do you have your snacks? Do you have your cozy blanket? Well, I would hope not, because it's literally 1,000 degrees outside. Let's get started. Why won't you go off? I was trying to create a spooky ambience there, but I think I've just registered myself legally blind. Our first tale of terror comes from username Caroline Vittoria Lemes, and she tells us about the time he waited for her to leave school. In 2019, I was just 15 years old, and I was in high school. At one point, I received a request to follow a 25-year-old guy on Instagram. He was not unknown as he attended the same church as my family, but we weren't even friends. I only saw him once or twice and we never spoke. I was even surprised that he knew my name because I didn't even know his name until that moment. He had always liked my photos, replied to my stories with compliments, but I always tried to ignore it as much as I could. Or sometimes I would just say thank you and completely ignore any attempt of him trying to build a conversation. He was very insistent until one day he sent me a DM saying that he would like to get to know me better and that he would like to take me out to dinner or something. Where, pray tell, do you plan on taking this 15-year-old child out to dinner? Chuck E. Cheese? I obviously declined, and I was quite honest with him and said it would never work since I was underage and he should look for someone his own age. At that moment in time, I didn't want to sound rude as we had a high possibility of meeting in church again, and I wouldn't want to cause a strange atmosphere, and that's why I didn't block him in the first moment. After that, he seemed to be quite quiet until the day I made a post with my friends at school. We took a photo inside the classroom and I made the big mistake of tagging my location. Stupid girl. Minutes after this, he sent me a DM saying, "Oh, I live very close to your school." Of course he does. He's a predator. He loves schools. I think I only live about 5 or 7 minutes away. I didn't answer. At that moment, it didn't cross my mind that this was a risk I could be taking. That same day, he continued to ask me if I would like to hang out with him. after school and that he could take me to lunch, and once again I politely declined. I was getting annoyed by this point. My parents weren't enjoying the situation either and told me that if I wanted they would confront him about it. So they haven't already at this point. But I didn't want any problems or being the target of comments in the church, as gossip often spread quickly over there. I believed that ignoring it was the best way, but it wasn't. The next day, our biology teacher had to leave school due to an emergency, so we had the last class time vacant. Me and my friends took our bags and went to the top floor of the school, where we had a complete view of the school's entrance. We stood there watching the street movement while we talked. That's when we noticed a man leaning against a silver car in a little more secluded corner of the street. But I could see perfectly who it was. At first I didn't believe it, so I went to his Instagram profile because I had remembered that he had taken some pictures with his car. Red flag number 1. I just wanted to make sure it was the same one I was seeing, and to my misfortune, it was the same car. So I took my phone out and zoomed in on his face and had confirmation of what I already knew. It was him. I told my friends what was happening and they got scared. He hadn't seen me go up there, which was good, so we made a plan so I could get out of school without him seeing me. The moment the school bell rang, my 3 friends got in front of me and I went down the school stairs behind them. They took me to my car. I managed to get in without any problems and go home in peace. I didn't even look in the direction he was. When I got home, I went to my Instagram just because I was going to confront him, but got a surprise that he had blocked me. Angry little stalker. Which was a relief, but also made me think he saw me at school and knew I had seen him. I told my parents what happened, but there wasn't much that could be done. After that, he never showed up at church again. I don't know what he intended waiting for me in front of my school, even after I said no multiple times. Moral of that story is just don't be too polite, okay? Mean people never get murdered. You always hear people say, oh, she was a ray of sunshine. Her smile lit up a room. You never hear anyone say, nah, she was a proper arsehole. You know, until true crime scarred me for life, I was that girl. I would always smile at every customer who walked in the door. I would politely decline men who offered me a drink at the bar. No thank you. But now I give death stares if someone even tries to sit next to me on the train. I'm a joy to be around. So how did you find our first story? Okay? Nothing to worry about? Well, just wait for our next story where we'll discuss a creepy catfish. On the topic of catfishes, whatever. Anyway, I am loving MTV's Catfish UK, and I'm never one to be victim blamey, you know me, but it's hard to believe that there's some humans in this world that are literally that dumb. I'm not gonna name no names, but there is a girl on the programme and she has 2 newborn twin babies. Her catfish asks her for her home address so he can send her a cactus. Every murderer's plan of choice. You and I, being of average intelligence, obviously would say hell to the no. But nah, she's like, sweet bro, here's my address. Why don't you take my birth certificate while you're at it? The real kicker of that story is the fact that the cactus just never arrives. So now this weirdo has your address where you live alone with your 2 infant children. In one of the other episodes, a girl is corresponding with this dude and he only ever sends her pictures from the neck down. So literally just torso pics. She has fallen in love with the headless horseman with abs. Now, I'm not gonna judge them too hard, okay? We've all been there. Before I met my fiance on Tinder, I was chatting to a guy named Craig. From the get-go, I could smell the seafood, okay? Straight away, he told me he had no social media, which tells me that he's either cheating on his wife or he's not a real person. It had reached a point where it was so obvious he wasn't who he said he was, I would openly refer to him as Catfish Craig. One of the creepiest catfish stories I've ever heard comes from Reddit username Existential Alien. Hi, I'm Cleo and I use they them pronouns. I'm Australian and was living in a pretty gross suburb in Victoria. It wasn't a good situation by any means, and I was using Tinder to meet new people and hopefully have a reprieve from my everyday life for a night or two. I matched with this guy. Let's call him Darcy. His picture showed this beautiful Greek god looking man. He said he was 6'5" in his bio. Men who are 6'5" and look like Chris Hemsworth, they don't need to use Tinder. He loved a lot of the same things that I did and had a good sense of humour from what I could see. I was honestly shocked that he had matched with little old me, as I had and have quite an alternative appearance and didn't typically match with regular looking guys. We started messaging and I was pleasantly surprised by how well the conversation flowed. He asked if I wanted to get dinner and I agreed. I gave him my address and got ready, feeling nervous but mostly giddy. You should have been feeling mostly terrified because you've just given a complete stranger your home address. I lived just off a main street and would tense whenever a car slowed down to turn down my road. After about 10 minutes of waiting, a Kia sedan pulled up on the curb. I frowned a little bit but assumed it was a visitor for one of my housemates. A guy stepped out of the car, no taller than 5'5", 5'6". Balding, dressed in khaki slacks with a perfectly ironed serial killer seam down both legs, a crisp white button-up shirt, a plaid sweater vest, and goddamn boat loafers. Now, I don't mean to sound cruel or overly judgmental, but all of these items were on a man that couldn't have been older than 25. It was just a really odd outfit for someone so young, especially in the area we were in. He spotted me and grinned and I felt my heart sink. He called out my name and I nodded slowly, looking around and half expecting the real Darcy, the one from his pictures, to get out of the car and tell me a friend or relative gave him a lift. Darcy? I replied, my voice shaking and already clearly uncomfortable. He grinned even wider as he closed the distance between us, giving me a hug. I awkwardly patted his shoulder and pulled away as quickly as I could. You look nothing like your profile pictures, dude. I said it straight off the bat. He winced and rubbed his neck, having at least the good graces to look sheepish. Oh yeah, he kind of chuckled, and it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up for whatever reason. They are, old photos? He added. Right, I replied, looking him up and down. And you said you're 6'5"? You're not 6'5", hun. I was literally looking down at him. I was, in fact, taller than this man. I'm 5'10" and had about a 2-inch heel to the boots I was wearing, bringing me up to an even 6 foot. He had to crane his neck to look at me in the eyes. Yes, I am, he said indignantly, the tip of his ears going bright red. I couldn't help the laugh that escaped my lips, quickly slapping a hand over my mouth to stop it. Sweetheart, I'm 5'10". How can you be 6'5"? If I'm taller than you.
Better try the reflection test.
I watched as a realization dawned on him. My friends and family just told me I was a short 6'5". Oh, sweetie baby, that's not a real thing. I almost felt bad for revealing the truth to him. I knew I should have told him to go home right away, but I figured at least this would make for a funny story, and he'd offered to pay for dinner, so I wasn't going to pass up on a free meal. We drove to the local shopping centre and ordered our meal at Nando's.
Boy, are you gonna bang? Don't know. I want some fucking Nando's.
The conversation wasn't bad. just kind of stilted. I attributed that to 1, it being a first date, and 2, the shock of him catfishing me still not having worn off yet. I could see a couple of the other restaurant patrons looking at us both, and I tried my best to ignore it. We got our meals and went to sit down, chatting about nothing important. About 15 minutes or so into us eating, he'd asked me some weird question that I was in the middle of answering when he interrupted me suddenly with, "How do you feel about incest?" I nearly choked on the mouthful of food I was chewing, feeling dizzy all of a sudden. Are you asking out of curiosity or for future reference? I asked, half joking as I stared at him with an eyebrow raised. Just out of curiosity, he answered, far too fucking quickly, leaving the worst feeling in my stomach. I nodded slowly, drawing out how long I could chew the bite of food to prolong having to answer his question. It quickly turned into gross mush in my mouth. I eventually had to swallow it so I didn't gag, and took a sip of my drink to prolong it further. Okay, well, I guess I see it as there are more than 7 billion people on this earth, and if you can't find someone who isn't directly related to you to have relations with, you probably shouldn't be allowed at family gatherings. Trying to keep my tone light and kind of joking. He didn't look very happy at my response, stabbing a couple of his chips a little too intensely with his fork. Well, what if they're in love? Huh? He bit back. Nah, this dude has definitely fucked his cousin, okay? He's sitting there stabbing away like, why not? Why can't we be together? I put my fork down and shook my head. I mean, I guess I don't know. It's just not for me, I said, firmly making eye contact to drive the point home. He nodded and let it go, and our conversation returned to less icky topics for a little while. I was almost enjoying myself when he shat on that again. He asked me another innocuous question that I was in the middle of answering when he cut me off again with, "How do you feel about bestiality?" He said this louder than his last question. The older couple sitting at a table across from us gave him a disgusted look, and I wanted to die in that moment. Again, are you asking out of curiosity or for future reference? I asked, my voice strained. He answered far too quickly again, making my stomach flip uncomfortably. Out of curiosity, he exclaimed, although every instinct told me this was a goddamn lie. I sipped my drink again and tried to think of what to say. I guess it's similar to my other answer. There are over 7 billion people on this earth. If you can't find a single human you would like to copulate with, you shouldn't be allowed into kennels, farms, zoos, aquariums, etc. He looked away first, but still had the audacity to ask, but what if they're in love? I laughed out loud, not because I found it funny, but because what in the hell was I supposed to do? Please tell me you're joking. An animal cannot speak, much less give consent. That's disgusting, Darcy, I said, my voice pretty icy. He nodded and thankfully let it go. The conversation kind of died out after that, can't imagine why. Though he still tried to ask me questions and get me to engage. I was just too uncomfortable at this point and honestly considered walking back to my house right then and there. I'd quickly finished my meal and was waiting for him to finish his, convinced that he was eating painfully slowly on purpose. We walked out to his car, quiet the entire way. As we approached his car, he threw me what I imagine was meant to be a coy smile, but just looked like he was trying to fart quietly. What's wrong, princess? Cat got your tongue? I shuddered at his choice of nickname, my skin absolutely crawling at this point. No, my mother taught me if I have nothing nice to say, shut up, I answered. My voice like icicles, he thoroughly looked taken aback. as though he had no idea why my demeanour had changed so drastically. "Could you please just take me home, or I can walk? I don't mind," I asked, trying to soften my voice a little. He nodded, looking dejected. It was thankfully a very short drive from the shops to my house, and we were silent for most of it. He pulled up to the curb, and I went to open the door, but he hit the central locking just before I could grasp for the handle. My heart rate immediately picked up and I felt panic clawing at my throat. I'm incredibly claustrophobic and have been trapped in a car in the past. I could feel my brain trying to flood itself with flashbacks, and I did all I could to remain grounded and just breathe. "Darcy, please open the fucking door," I said through my teeth, my eyes closed. "Do you want to come over to my house? I live on a farm." He sounded desperate. He put his hand on my arm and I dead set nearly screamed. Flinching away from him, he looked visibly hurt but hit the unlock button. I practically fell out of the car, feeling only a teeny bit overdramatic as I backed away from him and up my front path to the door. He sped off before I was even inside, and I had him blocked before I'd even gotten to my bedroom. I locked and triple checked all the doors around my house, shaking so violently I thought my bones would rattle right out of my body. It wasn't like he was violent or tried anything more than touching my arm, but the accumulation of ick over the course of the 2 hours we were together made me feel slimy and ill. I've not heard from him since and pray he no longer lives on that goddamn farm. So, to the creepy catfishing future podiatrist with far too much interest in incest and bestiality, let's never meet again. From that story, 2 things are definitely true. 1, his real name was not Darcy, and 2, he has his cousin and a baby goat chained up in a barn somewhere. So guys, I'm going to need to have a shot for this one, and if you love me or care about me at all, please go and get one and we can do it together. Unless you struggle with the Jesus juice, then just take a big handful of snacks. The reason I need a little bit of Dutch courage is because the next tale involves clowns. You know, I couldn't actually even tell you where my fear of clowns came from. Maybe it was my dad taking me to the Russian circus. Maybe it was my mum letting me watch it at the age of 10. Or, do you know, it could be actually that weird ham that used to have the clown's face printed on it. It would also explain my hatred for ham. But enough about my rocky childhood, and let's journey back to 2016, when it was being rebooted and Schmovid wasn't even a thing. You might remember that there was a massive PR stunt in which these freaks would dress up as scary clowns, scaring people at night. It got to a point where police had to actually issue a warning, making sure people didn't shoot these clowns. With the large amount that we saw on the streets in 2016, it does make you ask the question, were they all doing it for just shits and gigs? Or did others have more sinister intentions? Let's see what you make of Reddit username Lopsided Squid's encounter with a creepy clown. I don't know if many of you remember this, but back in 2016, there was a creepy clown trend where people dressed as creepy killer clowns and they would hang out in places after dark or stalk people. My story takes place on my college campus during fall of that year. I lived with my grandparents before leaving them for school, and I am extremely close to them. Also, I am very shy and had 0 friends or people I hung out with at school. I wanted to reach out and meet new folks, so I signed up for a salsa dancing club that met on Friday nights. I told my grandma over the phone and she was happy I was putting myself out there. She asked if I was going with anybody. No, I told her, I'm just gonna go by myself. Are you sure? She asked. Don't any of your roommates want to go? The idea of talking to my roommates terrified me. I could handle structured gatherings, but personal conversations left more room for my awkwardness to creep in. No, they're not here. I don't want you walking around campus by yourself at night. Listen to your granny. I thought my grandma was just being overprotective. Grandma, it's fine. The streets are well lit and it's only a 10-minute walk. It only takes a minute, girl. It's perfectly safe. Well, if you're not going with anybody, call me back and let me talk to you on the phone as you walk back. I agreed. That evening was incredibly fun, learning the basic steps and dancing to upbeat Latin tunes. At around 10:30 p.m, I felt ready to head back to my dorm, so I snuck out of the building and headed towards my dorm. Although the paved path I was walking on was lit by streetlights, it did seem darker than usual. In addition, the entire campus was deserted. Normally, there was quite a few kids my age wandering around, but that night there was not a soul to be seen. I dialed my grandma and made small talk with her as I walked. I took my heels off, carrying them in my free hand. Now, the path that I was walking on went past a stretch of sidewalk that was perpendicular to the one I was taking. Under one of the street lights, about 10 meters away, I noticed a lone figure standing with its back towards me. It's going to be a clown. The figure, hearing me chatting on the phone, slowly turned towards me. He was tall and heavy-set, with wild red hair, and appeared to be wearing light blue pajamas. His face was obscured by a killer clown mask. The mask was stark white with dark black eye sockets and a twisted, malicious grin.
Run, bitch! Run!
Time seemed to suddenly slow way down. The clown did not move towards me. He simply just stood there, staring. I knew I had to think fast. I contemplated my options. I could A. Scream like a little girl and run, B. Approach him and confront him, or C. Pretend he didn't scare me. The entire moment I just described couldn't have lasted more than a second, but in the moment it felt like an eternity. Are you there? I heard my grandma say. Remembering to breathe with the phone still at my ear, I decided to go with plan C, so I broke eye contact with the clown. So anyway, I said loudly enough that the clown would hear me. Yeah, I'm on my way, I continued. What's going on? Is everything okay? I heard my grandma ask, her voice suddenly filled with anxiety. As confidently and as nonchalantly as I could, I walked past the sidewalk where the clown was standing, continuing to chat. His head slowly turned as I walked past, watching me until I was out of sight. I ducked into the archway of the nearest building and I tried the door, praying that it was unlocked. It was. Once I was inside, I slumped against one of the concrete walls and broke down in tears. I explained to my grandma what had just happened. My grandma yelled for my grandpa to dial the campus police on his cell phone so that I could stay on the line with her. I got up and started pacing up and down the empty halls, checking every door and window to see if the psycho clown had followed me. Was he just a stupid kid doing this for a dare? Or was he someone with more evil intentions? Some of the creepy clowns in the news had axes or baseball bats. I had no idea if mine was armed. When my grandpa tried to explain to the officer on the phone what had happened and that I needed help, he told my grandpa, "Your granddaughter needs to make the call herself." Apparently, the reason I had to talk to them was so they could be sure that the call wasn't a prank or some stupid reason like that. I would have to hang up with my grandma and dial the campus police myself. Not knowing if I would survive the night, I told my grandma between sobs I love you. I love you too. My grandma was also crying. I dialed campus police and told them who I was and what had happened. The officer on the phone sent several other officers to find me whilst I stayed on the phone with him and gave him a description of the clown. As I was talking, I heard a door open. I froze. Was the clown here? Did he find a way in? A tidal wave of relief washed over me as several officers came striding down the corridor. They walked with me back to my dorm. As soon as I was inside, I locked my door and window and I shut the blinds. I called my grandma back to tell her I was safe. After talking for a little while longer, we said goodnight. Since then, I've made a few new friends at school, and whilst I'm in a better place now, I still don't go out alone after dark anymore. And as for that creepy clown, let's not meet again. I have so many questions about this whole trend. I mean, just why? Why? Now if you hear that a new horror movie's coming out, who gets it into their brain and thinks, do you know what? I'm going to buy a costume and stand on random street corners terrifying women. You can just imagine it, can't you? This strange dude goes into Spirit Halloween. I'll take one clown costume, please. And the cashier says, oh, how exciting, have you got a Halloween party to go to? And he replies, no. It's just for me. These, ladies and gentlebags, are the kind of red flags that murderers' mothers pretend didn't happen. Nope, little Jimmy gave us no warning signs, unless you count that one time he kept 10 jars of urine under his bed. Have you been listening to tonight's stories and thinking to yourself, Megan, this has nothing on my creepy story? Well, I want to hear them, whether it's about ghosts, werewolves, creepers, teachers who make you mixtapes. Yes, I have one of those. Let me know by writing in to megankillerweekend@gmail.com. That's megankillerweekend@gmail.com. If you like this week's episode, give it a big thumbs up for me. It really helps this wee channel of mine. If you're watching for the first time and the fact that I'm white girl wasted 10 minutes in hasn't put you off, then please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. I have a couple of exciting announcements for you this week, but our first announcement is a beautiful little gremlin baby. Not mine, Mum. Don't get excited. April Jones, you have been an amazing support to me and my channel from the very beginning when we literally had the worst microphone known to man. A huge congratulations to you and your partner on your beautiful little baby girl gremlin, and I can't wait to see her when the time comes, and I hope you have an amazing pregnancy. Our next announcement, or question if you will, is a little bit more businessy. You know I love bringing all the true crime content to you guys, and I would like to have more time to do that. So what I was going to ask is, would you be interested as a viewer in seeing 2 true crime, just true crime videos a week on this channel, and then having the Left for Reddit, the Weirdo Wednesday content spookiness on a podcast? What are your thoughts on podcasts? Would you listen? Would you not? Be totally honest. I just want to make sure that I'm bringing you guys exactly what you want to see. After 3 of these, I'm sufficiently smashed and my eyelash is starting to peel off the corner of my eye, so it's time for me to go to bed. I love you all so much, so please remember to lock your doors, don't talk to strangers, and don't get into cars with men who are under 5'9". Unless you're into that Danny DeVito vibe. You do you, babe. I'm never going to get this off my teeth now. Bye.